Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. In the interest of public health and safety and pursuant to the governor's executive order N-29-20, members of the Measure P Citizens Oversight Committee and staff are participating in this meeting by teleconference. In accordance with the executive order, the public may view this meeting online, but not in the Public Works Center lunchroom. The city has launched a virtual commenting portal, e-comment, that allows residents to comment and participate in the meeting from their own homes. You can find the link to e-comment at www.chulavistaca.gov/boards. Your comments must be received before we call to the close of the commenting period in order to be considered. After the commenting period is closed, I will announce a brief pause and allow the committee members time to read any comments that have been received. If you have difficulty or need assistance with e-comment during the meeting, please call 619-585-5620 and finance staff will assist you. I will now call roll call. Committee member first.
Present.
Committee member Friels. Committee member Friels is absent. Committee member Hunter.
Present.
Committee member Gerardo Prater. Committee member Gerardo Prater is absent. Committee member Lengel.
Present.
Committee member Maldonado. Committee member Maldonado is absent. Committee member Martinez.
Present.
Committee member Rito. Committee member Rito is absent. Committee member Romo.
Present.
Committee member Sheridan. Committee member Sheridan is absent. Committee member Vigilante.
Present.
Committee member Voorhees.
Present.
Committee member Ziamek.
Present.
And Chair Garcias.
Present. Okay, so with that, so we have consent calendar. We have several items in the consents. One is the consideration of excused absences. Second is approval of minutes from November 20th, April 30th. Staff recommendation to approve the meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the consent?
This is Commissioner Romo. I move to approve the consent.
Do I have a second?
You need to allow for a 2-minute.
Very good. Okay, so are there any requests to speak or comments? Sandy, any requests to speak or comments?
No comments have been received.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask for a motion again so we can, is there a motion to approve the consent?
This is Commissioner Romo. I move to approve the consent.
Do I have a second?
As Commissioner first, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion on, seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the consent, please approve. How are we doing this? Are we doing just I vote or hands up or?
I have to take a roll call vote.
Okay, thank you.
Committee member first,
Yes.
committee member Hunter,
Yes.
committee member Lenzel,
Yes.
committee member Martinez,
Yeah. Yes.
committee member Redo, committee member Romo,
Yes?
committee member Vigilante,
Yes.
committee member Voorhees,
Yes.
committee member Ziamek,
Yes.
Chair Garcias.
Yes.
The consent calendar passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, public comments. This is the section on the agenda for members of the public to address the board on items that are not listed. I will now call for a 2-minute pause to allow to submit any final public comments. Commissioner, as a reminder, please refresh the view on your screen to ensure new comments appear. Can you start the 2 minutes? Okay, are there any, Sandy, are there any requests to comment?
There have been no comments received.
Okay, the commenting period for public comments is now closed. Have the commissioners had enough time to read the submitted comments, if there were any? So there were none. Sorry. So we're going on to action item 3, appointment of the committee chair, vice chair, and second vice chair for fiscal year 2010. I think that's a mistake. Or is that correct? Year 2010 through 21 term? I think that should be 2020, right?
Correct. It should be 2020.
So recommended action, elect chair, vice chair, option include appointing. So elect the chair, vice chair, options include appointment of existing chair. So does anybody want to make a motion on the recommending action for the election of the chair, vice chair, second vice chair? Does anyone want to become the chair, vice chair, or second vice chair?
This is Commissioner Romo. I just want to ask, if you just got elected, why we need to pick another chair?
Staff? Any comment from staff on that?
Yes, this is Kelly Broughton. Technically, you don't need to appoint a new chair. Appropriate motion would be to maintain the same chair and vice chair and second vice chair if you want to do that. There's no requirement to change.
Do we have a motion to continue the existing chair, vice chair, and second vice chair?
This is Commissioner Ziomek. I make a motion that we keep the same chair, vice chair, and second vice chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, this is
Commissioner-
for Esau.
I'm sorry, who was the last person that spoke on the second?
I'm sorry, this is Todd Voorhees. I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I will see. Sandy, do we have another 2-minute pause?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the item. As a reminder, please refresh the view on your screen to ensure new comments appear.
Hi, this is Christina Hernandez from the City Clerk's Office. It appears that Member Redo's audio is out, just stating for the record. And Member Redo, I will be emailing you my cell phone number in case you need assistance.
Okay, the 2 minutes are done. Sandy, are there any comments?
There have been no
No comments have been received.
Okay, thank you. So all those in favor of the motion to continue with the existing chair, vice chair, and second vice chair, we'll have a vote. And Sandy, can you do the roll call?
Yes. Committee member First, committee member Hunter,
Yes.
committee member Lengyel,
Yes.
committee member Martinez,
I'm going to vote no because I don't think it was debated very much.
committee member Romo,
Yes?
committee member Vigilante,
Yes.
committee member Voorhees,
Yes.
committee member Ziamek,
Yes.
committee member Garcias, or Chair Garcias.
Yes.
All right. So we had 7 in favor, 1 no.
Okay. Okay, so the motion passes. So we'll move on to item 4. Preparation and presentation by the COC to the City Council of the required Measure P annual report for fiscal year 2019 and possible direction and actions by the COC regarding same, including formation of an ad hoc subcommittee. Recommended action, provide input.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Rito.
Yes.
I'm not able to, I'm shown as a panelist, but I'm not able to participate.
Okay.
And I'm on the list of panelists, but nothing works.
Okay. Well, let's ask Sandy.
Okay.
We can see you and hear you as a panelist. Can you hear me?
Commissioner, were you able to hear Sandy?
Commissioner appears to be muted.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, it's Christina from the clerk's office. I was able to troubleshoot Member Redo. Member Redo, if you can just scroll to the bottom of your screen and unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
Christina, this is Bill Valley. I just want to chime in because I got a text from Michael McDonald and he's having a hard time. He says his mic's not working either. He's from, he's our legal counsel. You might want to look at his.
Sure, I will give him a call.
Christina, Maria Cacciadorian would also like to join as a panelist if you or Sandy would be able to invite her. Please.
Got it. Thank you.
Working on it.
We'll take a few minutes while the staff work on troubleshoot the problems.
Sandy, this is Chris Rito. Can you add me as present to the meeting? Even though I could see you all, but you couldn't hear me.
We can see you now too.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, it kicked me out.
Hi, Sandy. City Manager Maria has joined as an attendee.
This is Michael McDonald. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Michael.
Hi, Chair Garcia. Sorry, I was assisting someone else. Can you let me know what are we waiting for?
We were just waiting on having Michael and Maria on, so I think, and then.
Let me finish up with Maria.
Okay.
Hi, this is Commissioner First. I just lost connection for a while, so I'm back.
We've been on hold anyway, so, but welcome back.
Okay, thanks.
And Chair, for point of clarification on action item 3, for the motion to pass would actually require 9 votes, affirmative votes. So that item did not pass, but since we have not moved on to item 4, we can still consider the item.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Garcias, I was not able to be heard.
Okay.
But I was trying to vote on the motion and I was going to vote aye.
Okay, thank you.
I will recall the voting information for number 3 once we have all the technical difficulties fixed. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandy.
This is Commissioner First. Can I get what the motion was?
The motion was item 3. There was a motion second to continue with the same chair, vice chair, and second vice chair.
Thank you.
This is committee member Hunter. I was wondering if Mr. McDonald could explain why we needed 9 votes.
Mr. McDonald?
Hi, sorry. I missed that question.
Oh, the question was from one of the commissioners, why did we need to have 9 votes?
Yeah, pursuant to our chapter 2.25 of our municipal code, commission actions require an affirmative vote of 50% plus 1 of all voting membership, and not just present members.
Thank you.
We have 2 vacant chairs.
Sandy, thanks for clarifying that. So it would require 8 votes.
Okay.
Maria, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It appears all the technical issues have been resolved unless somebody else has something. Chair Garcia, if you'd like to go back to that item.
Okay, so we have Mr. McDonald, can we go off of the same motion and do a revote now that everybody seems to be on the line now?
Yeah, you can proceed with the revote.
Okay, so the motion was, the motion that was made and seconded was a vote to continue with the existing chair, vice chair, and second vice chair. So I'd like to, is there any discussion from the commissioners? I know there was someone that did want to have some discussion.
Hey, I just had a question. So I'm not sure who the vice chairs are. I know who the chair is. And then I was just wondering, do do you really want to continue? I didn't hear anybody saying, yeah, I definitely want to continue. I didn't hear anything like that. It just sounded like we weren't even sure how the whole process worked. So it didn't give me a lot of.
I'm the chair. I know Commissioner First is the second vice chair. I'm sorry, he's the vice chair. And then I believe I'm sorry, who's the second vice chair?
It's Mona Frios.
Mona Frios.
Who's not
So
here?
those are the three.
I take it Mona
so
Frios.
those are the three chairs.
So Commissioner Martinez, this is Commissioner First. I'm open if anybody's interested in vice chair for the good of everyone, to be a rotation, because I think I've been the vice chair since inception.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested. Yeah, I'm interested in participating a little bit more, getting to understand a little bit more of how everything works. I've been here probably about a year. And, I'm a CPA and I know quite a bit about, financial matters and how to read financial statements and things like that. So, yeah, I'd be interested in participating more.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the current motion to have myself as chair, Commissioner Greg Martinez as the second chair, or sorry, the vice chair, and then the existing second vice chair would continue. So do I have a motion to approve that recommendation?
This is Commissioner Romo. I'd like to participate in the discussion before we vote.
Okay.
So my understanding was that we already voted and there was somebody that couldn't vote. So I think modifying the motion at this time is not in line, since we were just going to take the roll again.
So I believe that if someone puts a motion up to amend the original motion, I think it is within the scope if the motion, but then it has to be voted on separately. So the amendment to the motion has to be voted on separately. So it's not voting to approve the entire motion. It's only asking if there's an approval from the board, from the commissioners for the amendment.
Understood.
Okay.
That's correct, Chair. So it would be a vote on the motion as amended, as a new vote.
Right. So we have a motion to accept the amendment?
Yes, this is Commissioner Zalmek. I make that motion to accept the amendment.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a second?
This is Commissioner First. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. And do we have any discussion on the amended portion of the motion, making Commissioner Martinez as the vice chair? Any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion. This is just on the amendment. So all those in favor of the amendment to replace a commissioner first with Commissioner Martinez in the vice chair seat. So Sandy, could you call the roll on the this amendment?
I believe we would need to do the 2-minute timer.
Okay, no problem. So we'll now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the item before commission deliberations. Okay, the commenting period for this item is now closed. Have there been any comments?
No comments have been received.
Can we still make comments? This is Commissioner Romo.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. So we heard very briefly about reasons why Commissioner Martinez wants to be the vice chair. I'm interested in knowing more about his knowledge of Measure P and his interest on participating as vice chair.
Okay. Commissioner Martinez, do you want to speak on that?
Well, I mentioned some stuff already. Yeah. So I'm a Chula Vista resident. I've lived here 15 years. I'm a homeowner. I have kids in the schools here. I have a business here. I'm a CPA. So I think by being a CPA, I have a good understanding of financial matters. And yeah, I'd like to participate because I feel I can do a pretty good job. I don't feel that I'm not sure if the other vice, chairperson is even here today. If she is, excuse me, but I'd like to see some people who are really interested in kind of doing the best they can with this committee, and I feel I am that person. So that's why I'd like to participate a little bit more.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah, my question was more about his experience with the Measure P.
Okay. Oh, I think you're on mute, Commissioner Martinez. You're on mute.
So I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for, but I've been on this committee for a year, right? So, I mean, I understand what the committee is about, right? Measure P was a sales tax measure that was put into place to raise the sales tax 0.5% to fund infrastructure. And so I've learned a lot about, what things are considered infrastructure and, what's not. And most of it is pretty much what I would have expected. A couple things were a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, that's my experience. It's probably the same as just about everybody else on this committee, with the exception of the people who were the charter members. I've been on the committee, I'm guessing about a year. I don't know offhand, but I'm pretty sure it's been a little over a year. So, I think I'm pretty experienced with it.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing no more discussion from the commission, we'll have a roll call vote. So Sandy, can you please call the roll?
Committee member First,
Yes.
committee member Hunter,
Aye.
committee member Lenzel,
Yes.
committee member Martinez,
Yes.
committee member Rito,
Yes.
committee member Romo,
Yes.
committee member Vigilante,
Yes.
committee member Voorhees,
Yes.
committee member Ziyamek,
Yes.
Chair Garcias.
Yes. So it sounds like the amendment to the motion passes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the amendment to the motion passes. So now we'll go on to the main motion, which is the motion to approve the existing myself as chair, Commissioner Martinez as the vice chair, and then the second vice chair would remain the same. So all those in favor, and we'll do a roll call vote again for the final motion.
I just have a question. This is Commissioner Romo.
Yes.
So we elected you a few months ago, and yet we're voting again. So I'd like to know what's the length of your post and everybody in the commission. So maybe staff can explain why we are doing this again, and how long are you going to stay in that position?
Okay. Yes, and we'll have Mr. McDonald. Can you reply to that?
Sure. So these positions are for a one-year term, but there's no prohibition on serving for longer in that same capacity.
I guess the question, has it been a year? I lost track of time myself. So
That's correct. So the last elections were the first meeting in July of last year.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Romo, does that answer your question?
Not really. I don't recall voting for this new chair and vice chair a year ago. Perhaps there's some missing information on the minutes.
Commissioner Romo, this is Commissioner First. Can I jump in for a minute?
Yes.
If you may recall, you actually made the motion to elect Chair Garcias back a year ago. If you remember that.
I'm sorry, I didn't remember that it was so long. But if that's the case,
you made the motion to elect Chair Garcias, myself as chair, and Commissioner Friels as second chair. So yeah, that was you about a year ago. So yeah, we did do it.
okay. Well, it's times are different. I just felt that it was.
No, I understand.
shorter.
I just thought I'd jump in.
Thank you for the clarification.
I think the pandemic has taken some time out of our lives, so it made it a little longer. So, okay, so we have the motion and the second and the discussion. So we will now open it up for the vote. Sandy, can you please call the roll?
What item are you on?
Oh, we're on number 3. We voted on the amendment, and now we're voting on the final motion, which is the approval of the 3.
I believe that's what we did.
That's my understanding as well. Michael, is that your understanding?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Okay, I stand corrected. So I guess the motion passes. So congratulations to all. So now we'll move on to item number 4, and that's the preparation and presentation by the COC to the City Council of the required Measure P annual report for fiscal year 2019 and possible directions and actions by the COC regarding same, including formation of an ad hoc subcommittee. Recommended action, provide input, and take such action as the COC deems appropriate regarding the preparation and presentation of the Measure A annual report. So does staff have a presentation?
We do not have a presentation on this item. This is an item that each year we're required to discuss how we're going to complete the annual report and when we're going to bring it to council. We did get delayed as a result of our CAFR completion process in the early spring. And then because of COVID-19, the last agenda was not agendized as a full agenda like we were normally planning to do. And so in the past, we've done this a few ways. Sorry, I should have introduced myself. This is David Bilby, Finance Director for the city. In the past, we've done this a few ways. Sometimes there's key involvement from the chair. Sometimes there's a subcommittee formed that can discuss. Sandy, IQ, and Bill's team, as well as finance, have done a lot of the legwork to have the report in draft form for you all to review, and it's attached to the item tonight. And this is an item that you guys are considering whether or not you want to form a subcommittee, which is not a requirement of the ordinance, and how you want to go about completing the committee's report and presenting that to City Council. And we're here to answer any questions on how those reports were developed.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the commissioners?
Chair Garcias, this is
Yes.
Commissioner Rito.
Go ahead.
I can add a little history on this. You'll recall last year yourself, Ms. Friels, and a couple other commissioners served on an ad hoc committee. We reviewed the suggestions of the staff. We made some recommendations specifically on the way the information was presented graphically for the council. And that was the you might want to if you appoint an ad hoc committee, they might want to use that as the template going forward.
Okay. Yes, I do remember that meeting.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, Chair, this is Michael McDonald. Before we move on with further deliberations, can we go ahead and do the 2 minutes for public comment, please?
Yes. So I'll now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the item before commission deliberations. Okay, the comment period for this item is now closed. And we can continue with the deliberations. Are there any commissioners that would want to be on this ad hoc committee?
This is Commissioner Romo. Please add me to the ad hoc committee.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
This is Commissioner Rito. For continuity's sake, I'll be happy to serve.
Very good, thank you, Commissioner. So we have Commissioner Rito and Commissioner Romo. Is there anyone else that'd like to be on the committee?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Martinez. So
Okay.
I would like to participate.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So that's 3. Do we have anyone else that'd like to be on the ad hoc committee?
Chair Garcias, I would recommend that you be on the committee
Okay.
because you're likely to be the one to make the presentation of the report to the council.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rito, and I will take your suggestion and I will volunteer for the ad hoc committee. So that puts 4 people. Is there anyone else that would like to participate? Seeing no more hands up jumping at this opportunity. Do we need to take a vote on this ad hoc committee, or is it fine with the people that volunteered?
Hi, this is Michael. Yeah, we should take a vote to form the ad hoc subcommittee, and also the procedural matter. Can we confirm that there were no public comments received?
Okay.
No public comments were received.
Okay, so do I have a motion for the creation of the ad hoc committee?
Commissioner Rito, so moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Commissioner Romo moved.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the ad hoc committee?
Michael, do they need to set a date for when they're going to present to council?
David, I don't think there's a requirement to set a date. It may be helpful, however.
Can we do it after we created the committee and then pick a date?
The only reason I brought it up, this is David again in finance. The only reason I brought it up is because the next time we are meeting as a group is going to be in late October. And, the data information is going to be almost 1.5 years old at that point. So if the committee and the subcommittee had everything prepared and ready to go to council, maybe in September or August, then we could set a date in which we would be going to council with the information. Otherwise, we'd have to come back and discuss it again in October and then be presenting it after that.
So, I think once we create the committee, we can pause and try to synchronize our calendars. That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. You can work with Sandy on picking a date that council will need at least 3 weeks notice on for the agenda item for it to be ready for council.
Okay, thank you. So we have the motion and second. Seeing no more comments, all those in favor, and we'll do the roll call.
Committee member First,
Yes.
committee member Hunter,
Aye.
committee member Lengyel,
Yes.
committee member Martinez,
Yes.
committee member Rito,
Yes.
committee member Romo,
Yes.
committee member Vigilante,
Yes.
committee member Voorhees,
Yes.
committee member Ziomek,
Yes.
Chair Garcias.
Yes. Okay, I believe the vote was unanimous. So we will move on to the next item. Item number 5. Item number 5, consideration of proposed amendment of Measure P spending plan to change the timing of expenditures in certain expenditure categories. Recommended action, recommended city council approve of proposed amendments. The next item Oh, sorry. Does staff have a presentation?
Yeah, this is Bill Valley, City Engineer. Thank you, Commissioner and Chair and Commissioners. Ed, do you have the agenda item thing I sent you to put up on the screen? So this is in your agenda packet, but I just wanted to use it because we have photos in here that I was just going to use for the presentation versus like a separate presentation. So this item, I actually already took this to council due to the emergency nature of the project. This is the Energy Waste Sinkhole located just off Nirvana over there near the Public Works Center on Energy Way. I think I did brief you guys a little bit about it the last meeting that we just discovered it, and we're working on figuring out how to repair it. So we got into it. Let me just go through that picture there. You can see Energy Ways at the top of your photo. You can see where the hole is, and that water was from a rainstorm that had collected there. There's actually a riser that goes down about 35 feet to a 66-inch corrugated metal pipe that follows the path of that under the roadway. So let's go scroll down to the next picture, Ed, if you could. So we did use the Measure P drainage repair contract that we already had in place. There was some contingency balance there, so we did get started with this repair, and we had brought it back and I think let you guys know about it. This is after that hole was drained out, filled back up, and we had to put shoring in here basically to allow us to get down to the pipe itself to get to where the failure point was. Pretty expensive. Keep going to the next picture. This will show you an idea of the depth. So that's from the top. It doesn't really do its justice. It's deep. It's 35 feet deep. There we're still draining out the water, but you can see part of the old pipe there that's sticking out. Continue to the next photo, Ed. Since you guys have already read through this. Here's from down inside. So this is after it's cleaned out. And for this particular item, what happened was we got down, cleaned it all out. We were looking inside the pipe because we thought, well, it's just a failure where this riser had come up. But lo and behold, next photo, you'll see that once we got down there, we discovered that about 20 feet inside the pipe, there was yet another failure. And so at the time we investigated, it looked like it was a spot failure, just one location there where it's collapsed a bit. And so with this item that we took to council, we were looking, we met with the contractors, estimated a solution. The solution was to put a pipe, smaller pipe, through this pipe, dig out as you go, get to the failed area, dig out in front, and push the pipe, this inner pipe, basically through the failed area. So that's what this was. This item was for. The funding source we took from the Measure P paving project, which actually I'm happy to say wrapped up this past week. They've got a couple of minor punch list items for striping to do, but there was a pretty good contingency balance left in that project. So we proposed, let's roll that into our CMP repairs because we know that we have actually more inventory than we have than we had originally identified. So the proposal in this measure was to move 500,000 from the contingency balance of the paving project into this drainage project to allow us to do this fix. We took it to council, and they had approved it. We got started with the work, and unfortunately, so now let's scroll down. This is the new picture. So they started putting the pipe in. They got to the end. They got through that short failed area. But beyond that so this is from the end of the pipe that we slipped in. You can see that the pipe is actually completely disintegrated, and this is under Energy Way itself. So in the middle of that picture, you can see like a piece of metal that kind of comes up and curves up, and there's a ragged edge on the right edge. That ragged edge should actually be down at the very bottom. That's the bottom that's curled up inside the pipe. So So once we've hit this, now we decided, well, we cannot continue to push a pipe through this. The contractor said that's just not possible and stuff. So in the last 2 weeks, we've gone out and talked to several different primes and 2 tunneling contractors. And it appears the best solution is going to be, so let me roll back. So for this item, we took it to council, got it approved. So I was going to bring this to you just to say, okay, we brought it to council and here's the update and here's where we're at. We're moving forward so that you can approve it as well. And but the new information since we went to council was we're now going to need to deal with this problem. And so we're currently looking at, okay, how do we tackle it? So like I said, in the past 2 weeks, we've talked to different contractors and tunneling contractors. The recommended solution that seems to have the lowest risk, doesn't require additional right-of-way, and from a constructability standpoint is now to actually go to the south side of Energy Road, put in a pit, and actually have a tunnel contractor come in. And what they would do is they install, it's basically a liner. It's a tunnel slightly larger than the original pipe. It engulfs the original pipe. And as they tunnel forward, they remove the original pipe, and then that tunnel stays in place and you slip a new pipe through it into that casing. So it looks like that's going to be about another $500,000 to do the tunnel. And so currently what we're doing is looking at, okay, what funding sources do we have either in Measure P or potentially partially in Transnet, because part of this is in the roadway. So we don't have that totally finalized yet in terms of where the funds would come to do it, but we are going to seek approval of council to continue to do this repair using the tunnel scope as an emergency to keep moving forward. Because as you can imagine, all that shoring that's at the north end already, you know, there's rental rates on that. So every day that goes by, there's additional costs that go on, even if you're doing no work. So we're going to take an emergency measure to council to do a tunneling project through here. Part of the funding might come, we did establish, I think this was, again, a couple meetings ago, knowing that we were having sinkholes pop up in various locations, we did establish a Measure P emergency CMP repair project that has 400,000 in there. So that particular project was established in the CIP this year. And we are already using a portion of that for the sinkhole at Melrose, which I believe I showed you guys last time, which is off of the 805. It backs up to some homes there and is in danger of encroaching into the private property. So there might be about 300,000 there that we could use, and then we'll need to look for Transnet funds. But I can't tell you exactly what at this point because we don't have all the numbers, but that's kind of the magnitude of it. Pretty significant issue. This pipe here on Energy Way it's at the road elevation. This pipe is 55 feet deep. So, you know, traditional shoring and trenching just wouldn't work. And in terms of risk, there is a bit of a risk here if the road was to collapse. All of the waste trucks, all the Republic waste trucks that serve the city, they park down at the end of the cul-de-sac, so they'd have to it'd be at the other end of the street. So so that's pretty much the presentation on this. The request is for you to confirm that you know the additional 500,000 that we brought forward to do that initial fix, to agree with that's within the you know funding parameters of Measure P or the concept of scope. And that we're going to proceed, and just an acknowledgement, I guess, that we're going to proceed with trying to resolve this failure actually under the roadway. And with that, I'll open it up. Any questions?
This is Commissioner Romo. I have 3 questions for you. So I wonder if you can say that this is a direct result of climate change. That's number 1.
Can I, Commissioner Romo, can you hold for a moment? I believe we have to do, after the staff presentation, we have to allow, now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit final comments.
You're absolutely right. Thank you.
Chair Garcia, actually, the commission can ask clarifying questions to staff, just to ensure that everything is clarified.
Okay, Commissioner Romo, you can continue with your clarification.
Thank you. So I was wondering if you can characterize this as a result of climate change or the climate emergency, or this is just a failure due to unforeseen issues? That's my first
I think,
question.
yeah. Do you want me to answer them one at a time? That's probably best. Let me go ahead and, so
Yes.
I wouldn't say that this is directly related to climate change. I think these pipes went in over 30 years ago. And I think the indication, you know, that ragged edge on the end, and we've rehabbed portions of these pipes in this park, the Otay Business Park it was called, and they're all showing basically the same kind of failures. These CMP pipes at the bottom, they just corrode out over time, and they should have been probably lined, you know, 15 years ago to maintain and preserve and prolong them. But that just didn't occur, and I think the lack of that type of maintenance, you know, is going to result in failures. I think in some ways we're kind of lucky that we're not seeing much more of this. But I don't think it's directly related to the storms. It's really the deterioration of the metal at the base, you know, at the flow line of the culvert, and then once the metal goes away, the annular strength of the pipe is compromised, and it'll start to curl up just like you see here on itself.
Thank you. Then I'm going to skip my second question, but I have a third one. And due to your professional experience, do you think that we, instead of treating this as emergency repairs, shall we modify the charter or suggest a modification of the charter of Measure P as we're preparing to present a report to City Council? Perhaps we need to include cases like this as part of the regular expenditures of Measure P. So I'd like to have your opinion on that.
Well, that's kind of what we were doing when we established that DRN 216, which is the Measure P emergency repairs of culverts. So that does provide an opportunity where we already have a funding, you know, a project established, and then we just use it at locations as they come up. And so I think honestly the way we're approaching it currently is pretty good. I mean, we're dealing with cash flow movement between programs within Measure P, but some of that really has to do with our ability to deliver, you know, the whole host of projects, and IQ will get into that as well on her side. But you know, I think we're doing a pretty good job in terms of delivery. I think we were, you know, when we do our status update later in the meeting, you'll see, I mean, we've made, you know, great progress in a lot of the different categories. So I don't know that we need to do I would like to keep this emergency one that we've established. Like I said, there's 400K in there now. We're going to use about probably 100 to 150 on the Melrose Sinkhole. We may need the remainder here if I can't find another funding source. And so it would be nice to have a project like that available, because even though we've spent quite a bit of money, you know, over $8 million on these pipe repairs, the dilemma is there's still a few more out there. And, you know, if we haven't had completed the repairs that we have to date, both in the right of way and out of the right of way, we would have dozens of these sinkholes. So, I mean, we're lucky we only deal with a few. They certainly do show up when we have rainy season. So you know, when we had those long dry drought periods, you wouldn't see as much of the potential for a sinkhole to appear. But I think the potential is out there, which is why we you know, set up the program in the first place.
So let me just get a clarification from you. Since we are scheduled to meet in certain dates during the year, do you think that in cases like this, do you need to wait for decisions from this committee And in that case, are these preventing you from acting faster on emergency repairs?
Oh, no, it's not. I'm not. When it's a failure like this, it's a clear emergency. Then we go into the emergency provisions in our municipal code, and I'm allowed to move forward with a project. I need to alert council and go back and report to them. And similar to what we just did, where I went ahead and went to council to get this started, and now we'll come back and let you know. And our commitment to you is Measure P was set up to deal with failed or failing infrastructure. So I'm not going to go out and do some kind of betterment type project. This is clearly, obviously, a failure, and it's warranted under the Measure P provisions. So I think in cases like this, it's clear we're going to move forward, and I don't think there would be an issue. So at this point, I think we have what we need to act quickly, and that's what we've been doing.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your presentation and for those responses.
Thank you.
So I think we should now allow for a call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the item before.
There is also another presentation.
Yeah, there's one more. IQ needs to do her presentation.
Okay.
And Commissioner Garcia says, as Commissioner first, I'd like to add a couple comments.
Sure, go ahead.
So Bill, as you know, I'm a big supporter of lining or replacing CMP storm drains. I think it's probably highest priority, especially when you lack funding outside of the public right of way. And if I recall, I think you'd inventoried everything and you were cammering all the CMP. And I think you had an outside consultant doing that. Can you give us a status on identifying all the existing CMP the city has?
Yeah, so back in history, when Measure P was put together, we went off of basically it was a consultant research document that went through and had identified all the CMPs in the city, and it was done about 2005, I believe. And so that's what we based our criteria on when we came forward to Measure P and said, well, this is how much we think we need to complete the lining and repairs of the CMPs. What happened is that as we got into it during this probably the past year, and I think I've mentioned to you guys before, there's actually about 66 other locations that weren't in that original study that are CMP pipes outside the right of way that had been discovered. Part of it was through a GIS database glitch where we were transferring files from one to another. It was done, I don't know the details on it, but I know that there's about 66 more locations. We've videoed all that we could. There's about 25, I believe, or so that are plugged. They have we can't get into them, so those are going to be. We haven't completed, an investigation of those to the point where we know it's a remove and replace, or it could be lined, or what the strategy would be. So that's going to be the next list that we're going to bring forward to try to move on. Out of that, again, in looking at Measure P funding, we do have some monies left over in the phase 2 paving project that would seed that, but it's not going to complete it. So in the future, we're going to need to continue to tackle it. We did prioritize the ones that we know about now, those additional ones. And so there is a first, second, and third tier. The third tier is really, they look like they're in pretty good shape, so they can last. They're not like an imminent failure. The first tier are ones that we need to get done in the next year or two because they're showing failure distresses. So that's kind of the update status on where we're at. The first tier is about, I'm thinking it's almost 2 million. So those will be separate CIP projects, though. We'll need to figure out the funding, come back, establish a project, and go out to do those. These we're talking about now, these emergencies, they're primarily time and materials, so we don't want to do that for the remaining list if we can avoid it.
Mm-hmm. And Bill, could you guesstimate that an emergency repair is 3 to 4 times the cost of lining?
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, our repairs, I mean, it depends on the size and the length of the pipe, but on average, the repair per location with lining is running between 15,000 to 30,000. Some of those are a little higher just because there's no access points on some of these. So not only do you have to line it, you have to create an access point because of their location. They weren't really designed correctly, in my opinion, but that's another story. But yeah, I mean, and then these repairs, you know, are, so Melrose Sinkhole, that's about estimated at about 150,000. It's a slope repair because the slope has failed. So it's a down drain, a slope, a new pipe. If we were able to have lined that down drain, it would have probably been in that $15,000 range. Instead, it's 150. So this one, you know, we're gonna be nudging up against $1 million by the time we're done on this Energy Way one.
You have my full support to line every CMP you have in the city.
Yeah.
FYI, I'll say it again. Speak from experience, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that conclude staff's presentation?
No, IQ has some changes as well.
Okay.
IQ? You're on mute, IQ.
Hello, commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Good evening. As Bill mentioned, you know, we're continuing to manage our asset portfolio to the best we can, given that sometimes we've got some critical emergencies that do arise. And then other times we have some really great news as we're making quite a bit of progress with some of our projects. I'm trying to see what's echoing here. Okay. And so I'm really pleased with the first category, Civic Center and South Libraries. We have completed a number of projects in critical infrastructure order, and that's, you know, the replacement of roofs, HVAC systems, and some ADA remodeling of the restroom, men and women's restroom at the Civic Center. We are now ready to issue the bid for the remaining 4 restrooms at the Civic Center, 2 of which are in the children's area, necessitating a bit of remodeling in the children's area. And as the overall project will require some ADA modifications to the parking lot that's adjacent to that. So we are requesting a budget transfer from within the Measure P funds, but from the park category. And it does continue the practice of managing our assets based on the consequence of failure and leaving sufficient funds for projects to continue moving forward. The second category has to do with public buildings, and public buildings is a catch-all for all the remaining facilities, everything from civic center to recreation centers to boys and girls clubs to the Living Coast Discovery Center. There are a number of projects there, largely having to do with roofs and HVAC systems. The Boys and Girls Club roof failed earlier than anticipated, as well as it was not necessarily accounted for in the portfolio initially. And we came back and did a reassessment of that facility. As with Bill, he discovers new CMP, I discover new facility assets that need to be addressed. The failure couldn't wait for us to just do a major maintenance. It was beyond major maintenance and would have great consequence to the interior of that facility. So that necessitated moving forward. the COC had approved for the Public Works Center a chiller and boiler project that we had delayed in moving forward and continued to carry out the Boys and Girls Club. Well, as my good luck would have it, last month we lost a chiller at the Public Works Center, which means we have no HVAC at Public Works. So that's a great sacrifice from our Public Works staff for the betterment of some of our other projects. However, we do need to move forward in it's in a critical status. We have rented a chiller, but a rental cost is about $30,000 for 3 months. So we've hired a design team. The design team is working pretty fast to get the bid documents out. We hope to bid it in August and be able to get a chiller back in place at Public Works. That is necessitating this $741,600 transfer. We are recommending the transfer happen from sports courts and fields. As you will recall, commissioners, we rehabbed over 62 sports tennis courts and basketball courts throughout the city early on in the Measure P stages. We also reconstructed the Roar basketball courts and then completed a number of projects that improved fields and irrigation projects to include the smart irrigation systems early on. The transfer that we are requesting to be able to move forward with bidding the HVAC system as well as the remaining items in the library will come from sports courts and fields, but it will leave $1.3 million available for our partners, community services, to continue to move forward with implementation of the irrigation project. The irrigation project has been in design, and it's nearing, I think it's probably between 60% design right now. We hope to bring that forward to the commission as it gets to a 90% drawings, and we have a better estimate and able to bid that project out. So that is what we're recommending today is additional funds be transferred at this point in time, basically in the betterment and management of our asset portfolio based on the consequence of failure. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions from any of the commissioners?
I have a question. This is Commissioner Romo. So we agree with what you just said, and but I was wondering, we've been transferring resources to support different projects in this regard, not this regard, but we're taking money from the fire department, and lately the fire department is facing a fire season that will have unprecedented consequences as we're concerned about climate change, and I wonder if there's an impact on the resources we took from the fire department that we may need to come up with other resources that we find that we have on the sports and courts and fields and other projects that eventually have to support the fire department on whatever comes up. We're aware that the fire season is no longer from October till the storm season. Now it extended all the way to the summer. So just want to make sure that we would be able to respond to whatever emergency we would have in the near future with the fire department.
Commissioner.
I'll take this one, IQ.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah. So this is Maria Cachidorian. So I want to just make sure that everyone's aware. Fire department is being very well taken care of. Everything that's been identified under Measure P, which is fire department, is moving forward. We are continuing to move forward with the construction of the fire stations. As a matter of fact, I think if I'm not correct, David, correct me, but I believe when we went forward with the financing, many of the vehicle purchases and equipment purchases were actually moved up, as opposed to the initial plans, which we anticipated some of that equipment was going to be purchased in the outer years. So the fire department is being taken care of. Nothing that's being brought forward transfers will impact their ability to provide services. As a matter of fact, as a result of Measure P, they're much better equipped to address wildfires and any emergencies that may come our way.
Okay, does that answer your question, Commissioner? Okay. I do think that we should have to still take that moment where ask for the 2-minute pause. Andy, am I correct? I'll go ahead and open it up to discussion. Does anybody like to make a motion on the proposed amendment for the spending expenditures?
This is Commissioner first. Go ahead, Commissioner Romo.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. As a Commissioner first, I would like to make a motion to approve the request as shown in item 5, attachment 1, as presented by staff.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Romo. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. So open it up for discussion. Does anybody have any comments before we take the vote?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Voorhees. I have several comments and questions, please.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, first, thank you. First, I'd like to couch this by stating that I don't certainly oppose this, nor am I trying to tie the hands of city staff when it comes to emergency work, but I do have some concerns. And with that, I will be abstaining from this vote, more on a procedural matter. City Council's already taken action on this, and they obviously supersede us. So from a procedural perspective, what if we all as a commission decided to vote no on this? I mean, nothing's going to change because council's already taken action, right? So that's my thought on that. With regard to the funding, when these emergency projects come up, I think we should have probably a larger emergency fund that Bill can work from and that has maybe some leeway on. Because I'm concerned that every time this happens, it seems the money comes from street paving. And if we have significant funds in street paving, then I'll ask, why do we have significant funds in street paving? I know we're a victim of our own success there, but if we're doing such a great job, let's continue that and do more street paving. You know, I would personally like to see the money come from other sources, but I understand that. So if we want to set up some guidelines and procedures and a greater fund, you know, I would be all for that. And then these items could come back as probably an informational item at that time. And we wouldn't need to take this vote that doesn't matter to begin with. Lastly, I will say that I'm a little concerned that 500K came out of the street funds when we still had 400K in the CMP emergency funds. Shouldn't that have been extinguished first? And that'll conclude my comments.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And I do think that part of the mandate for this committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, was we're also sort of an oversight that reports sort of like if we see something being done incorrectly by either the city staff or the city council, it's our responsibility to make sure that they're doing it with the spirit of what Measure P was passed for. And so part of our, even though it's a after the fact vote, we are voting to say that we think it was appropriate or not. So that's what our Measure P COC committee is supposed to, I believe, is supposed to be doing. And
no, thank you for that. And I would absolutely agree with that. And in fact, I think, you know, maybe it was lost in some of my negative comments, but I'm actually trying to give Bill a little more leeway here in the fact that, you know, maybe we should set up some guidelines in an emergency fund where he does have that option when, you know, obviously these emergencies happen and they'll continue to happen and we need to address them as they do, you know, in real time and not wait for our meetings. And maybe we could put that on the agenda for a future agenda, I guess would be my recommendation.
Mr. Voorhees, this is David Bilby, the finance director. Your comments are well timed. We were actually just discussing this exact subject this morning in an internal meeting about having money set aside. One of the things that finance did for the last 4 years was, as revenues were growing, we made sure not to be overly aggressive with the revenue projections. And so we had interest earnings and other revenue forecasts that were exceeding expectations, but we weren't coming back to the committee asking for every penny to be allocated because we wanted to leave some in reserves. We wanted to make sure that we had some for a rainy day. And we were actually very successful with that over the last 3.5 years. But unfortunately, because of COVID, we're going to be coming back to this committee in 3 months with some very different revenue projections. And so we've had some money that has been unallocated and available up until COVID-19 started. And to this point, when we've been able to utilize that to add projects that came up, and it was just the unfortunate timing of the combination of COVID-19 and Bill's projects, the emergency projects occurring at the exact same time. That just was a perfect storm, unfortunately. And your comments about the emergency work are spot on. We actually passed an updated municipal code in the last couple of years that essentially talks about some of the provisions that we've modified in the Public Works municipal code section for public contracts. And even council actually does not hear the items first. We actually have the authority under that emergency municipal code provision to move forward with the work under emergency guidelines, as Bill talked about. And then we go to council, letting them know what we're doing budgetarily and administratively. And then we're coming back to you, as Chair Garcia mentioned, for the specific reason of ensuring that the committee is understanding and on board that this meets the spirit and the intent of a project that is compliant with the original ordinance. So I hope that brings a little light that we're not being too aggressive, and a reserve set aside is certainly a discussion point that we can make more formal, but to this point has been fairly informal.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay, are there any more comments? See no more comments. All those in favor, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Committee Member Firth,
Yes.
Committee Member Hunter,
Aye.
Committee Member Lengel, Committee Member Lengel,
Yes, can you hear me?
yes. Committee Member Martinez,
Yes.
Committee Member Ritos, Committee Member Romo,
Yes.
Committee Member Vigilante,
Yes.
Committee Member Voorhees,
Abstain.
Committee Member Ziomek,
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes. How many votes was in favor? And then I know that I did hear one abstention.
9 in favor, 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. So the motion passes. So moving on to the next item. On item number 6, discussion on possible reduction in committee size, the COC committee, change of location, date, and time in order to facilitate greater participation from our committee members. Recommended action, provide input and direction as the COC deems appropriate. So does staff have a presentation?
There's no presentation.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll have, so I'll now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on this item before the commissioners deliberate. Okay, so the commenting period of this item is now closed. Have there been any comments, Sandy?
No comments have been received.
All right, thank you. So commissioners, this has been a sort of an ongoing problem as we haven't had quorum on a couple times. Mr. McDonald, is there any recommendations on this?
Hi, Chair. I don't have any recommendations on this, but I can clarify a quick procedural issue here. Any reduction in the committee size would require an amendment to our ordinance. So that is something that if the committee so chooses, could make a recommendation to staff to prepare an item for council on that if the committee determines that's desirable. However, on the other hand, changes to the day, time, and location of the meeting can be done at the committee level by resolution.
Okay, is there any ability to just say the quorum is 50% of the members present, or is that a possibility, or is it better just to shorten the size of the committee?
You could approach it either way, but both would require an ordinance update.
Okay. So whatever we do, we have to recommend it to the council.
As far as committee size, yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any recommendations they'd like to put forward?
This is Commissioner Romo. I think that the Measure P was widely approved by citizens of Chula Vista, and it needs this committee needs a representation of different commissions and boards. Reducing the amount of members might not help, because what we really need is committed commissioners. And like we heard today from Commissioner Martinez, there's people that wanted to participate more. So I disagree with the idea of reducing the representation on this committee.
What about the idea of having like a recommendation that the votes would be 50% or 50% plus of the quorum would be 50% of the members present. So if we were shorthanded, we could do the 50% if the members were, if we were shorthanded. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that.
This is Commissioner Romo again, and I support that recommendation.
Commissioner Martinez, you know, I've observed, well, one thing I was thinking about is that, you know, I've actually been to all the meetings. So I have a perfect attendance record. So, and I know that, you know, we've not had a quorum a couple times. So I'm just wondering how many absences people allowed, you know, to stand. You know, kind of, but I mean, that you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Martinez. Does anybody else want to speak?
This is Michael McDonald. I couldn't hear everything committee member Martinez mentioned there, but As to consecutive absences, the code does provide that if there are 3 consecutive absences, that a committee member at that point will have vacated their position.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Commissioner First. Mr. McDonald, I believe we had 16 members at one point. Can you tell me how we reduced 1 member, how that went about?
I don't believe that there was an elimination of the committee membership. I just believe it's an unfilled position at this point.
Okay. And Mr. Martinez, the same. I didn't hear everything you said, but I think I'd be in favor that if somebody has at least the 3 consecutive absences that they vacate, and we go back to the whoever appointed them, whatever department or whoever the nominating authority was, if they want to select someone else. And if they don't want to select someone else, then we reduce that seat. Because staff does put a lot of time into preparing these meetings and attending the meetings. And when we did have the couple in person where we didn't have a quorum, you know, that's not a good use of everyone's time. And it's not a good look for the committee, you know, for us as representatives of the city.
Thank you, Commissioner.
This is Commissioner Martinez.
You're breaking up, Commissioner.
Your connection's pretty bad.
You're still coming up broken.
I was just, you know, the rule that if you miss 3 in a row, oh, is it breaking up? Okay, well, I'm on my cell phone. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
I might.
We can hear you now.
You're breaking up again.
Maybe you can turn off your video.
Commissioner Martinez, if you turn off your video, it may help.
About that, can you hear me any better?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Can
yes, you're good.
Yeah. Can we change the rule from 3 consecutive meetings missed to just like 3 meetings missed, period? I think if you miss 3 meetings, I mean, maybe not an automatic, you know, but maybe, you know, maybe at that point. You know, because it's pretty excused absence, right? I mean, if you have to work, if you have something, we already have a procedure for that.
And I think that, and I do agree with the absences, I think, but there is still like a turnaround time to replace that seat. In the meanwhile, we do have, you know, people that are not able to attend. So I'm trying to figure out where the quorum is, and I think the quorum is a different number. Is it because we're not lowering the number of seats? We're just saying currently, the current argument is if somebody does not attend, we vacate their seat and find a replacement. Or are we considering lowering the number of seats? That's the second option. And then the third one is, do we lower the quorum to 50% of those members present? So those are 3 different options that we can look at. We can pick maybe all 3, or we can pick 1, 2, or 3. So any discussion on that?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Romo, and I believe that the last thing we want to do is to reduce the participation, because the Measure P requires members of different commissions to be able to have a say. Um, Finding a replacement is a good solution. However, I don't believe in reducing the numbers. Your proposal of reducing the percentage sounds much better. So I'm leaning to support that.
Okay. Any other discussion, comments?
This is David from Finance. Michael, do you recall if the 3 absence rule was in the original documentation? Because when the committee was originally started, we had meetings every month or every other month. And so I'm just curious if we didn't modify that 3 absence rule, that would mean that a committee member could be gone for a whole year or essentially 9 months and still be on the panel. So I'm just curious if we line that up with our original meeting dates or meeting increments, I should say.
Yeah, David. So the 3 consecutive unexcused absence rule is actually already in our code for all boards and commissions.
Okay, so the fact that we've gone from 12 meetings a year to 4 doesn't change that rule, but can this committee decide to change that rule given the comments tonight?
They can propose that recommendation to council. It would have to be considered by council.
So, Mr. McDonald, do we have to make a motion on what we're recommending?
Unless there's consensus, then it's probably best to make a motion.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
This is Commissioner Romo. I'd like to make the motion to reduce the percentage to 50% of the quorum to 50% to have the quorum.
So that's the 50% of those present at the meeting, correct?
That's correct.
And just to clarify that the typical number you would need for achieving that would be 50% plus 1.
Correct. Of those present.
Of those present, correct.
So the motion is to make it so that the quorum is lowered to 50% plus 1 of those present during any meeting. So do I have a second on the motion? Is there a second on the motion? All right, I don't hear a second. Okay. Motion. I guess the motion doesn't have a second, so it fails.
Right. So this is Commissioner Romo again. Why don't we just move this to the future agenda item?
Okay. Is there anyone want to make another motion? We have to come to some type of consensus on how to fix the issue.
Chair, this is Michael. Your other options would be to make a request of staff to come up with something based on the discussion today and to calendar this for a future meeting for future consideration, and or don't act on the motion.
Okay, and that could be just a staff direction?
Correct.
Okay, so Mr. Bilby, do you have enough information from us for that, for this item?
So I think we've got the idea of what the committee would like, but I'm hearing a few different ideas, one in which reducing the size would not be acceptable and one in which reducing the size would be. And so it would be helpful if there was some form of consensus in that regard, and then we can talk more specifically or recommend more specifically amendments to the ordinance that would allow the successful adoption and quorum issues that we've had we've been discussing this quite a bit internally because ever since the committee was formed, the largest number of people in the committee that were in attendance was 13 out of 16. So it's not a very high percentage for us in order to get a quorum. That's why we struggled to get one so often. That's why it was agendized back in January and then again now so that we could have the discussion on with the committee involved in what they would prefer. And even though we would all like to have 16 present members, we've never had it. And so that's why our staff recommendation would be to reduce the size by 2 to 4 in order to allow for a more consistent quorum of the group of members that are able to consistently attend.
Chair Garcia, Commissioner
Yes.
Rito.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
wonder if we might poll our members to find out what the problem is. Is it the time? Is it the location? I mean, I really don't know the answer to that question. I mean, the location is convenient to me, but I don't know if it's inconvenient to others. Maybe that's why we're not getting folks. Maybe Thursday night at 6 is not a good time. I really would like to get some input from the committee members themselves, because I do agree with the point made earlier that the members of the committee represent a variety of constituencies. And if we were to reduce the membership of the committee, then we're going to be faced with the decision of which constituency do we eliminate. And that I think might cause some heartburn because of the nature of the way this committee was first formed and all of the interest groups that wanted to have a seat at the table.
Yes, we can hear you, but you're coming out slightly broken.
Chair Garcia, this is Commissioner Romo.
Yes, go ahead. Commissioner Martinez, we still can't hear you. Commissioner Romo, can you go ahead? Oh. Commissioner Romo, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. I suggested earlier to table this decision.
I wanted to make the point, you know,
Commissioner Martinez, you're still coming in broken up.
Christina, can you work with him offline to find out what his connection issue might be, and can we keep him on mute until that time?
And I'm sorry, Commissioner Romo, can you continue with what you were saying?
Certainly, Chair Garcia. So I suggested that we should table this. I agree that we've been lacking of full participation in the past. Perhaps as we're approaching new challenges on this commission, members of this commission should be reached out by perhaps yourself and staff to make sure that people are committed. I still believe that reducing the number of members is not a good idea. So if we table this for the next meeting, we might be able to, in the meantime, reach out to members and have perhaps you can have a private conversation with the staff to find a better solution.
Thank you, Commissioner. And the other item I was thinking about was what if we had like a group, sort of a subcommittee, and I know Commissioner First, maybe you could help with that, and just that we could all work with staff to come up with some ideas between now and the next meeting that they can bring to the committee. And so it'd be sort of a subcommittee. Would anybody like is that okay with staff?
What exactly is the recommendation?
So have like a subcommittee of commissioners work with you on possible ideas to come back to the committee at the next meeting.
That would work fine for me in finance. Me and Sandy can work with you on whatever team you want. It could be the same subcommittee you elected for the presentation of the annual report, or it could be a separate group. But just so Mr. Romo and the committee is aware, finance does request an RSVP from every member for every meeting. So the current process does include that. We do not receive responses from all members. So there's inherently issues with people's schedules or timing or what have you, but it has not been, we have not received 100% participation even in the RSVP requests.
Okay. Yes, I mean, we can have, so I don't know, Commissioner First, would you be willing to be on that committee?
Yes, I would. And actually, can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
I think for myself, maybe it's a compromise. I agree with Commissioner Romo. I would like to keep the full 16 seats that we have. I'd probably a hybrid. I would go to the 50% plus one. So it's per meeting, but we do need to go back and look at attendance history. And I think we should remove those people, and those appointing authorities should seek to reappoint someone else to fill those positions. So I think if I were to ask staff to do anything, I think I'd like them to go look at attendance history. And I think you got to have at least a 50% attendance, and that's only 2 times a year. But I think this committee's been around for multiple years. So I think maybe we've got some people with less than 10% attendance history.
So we do have that attendance history. We just have been sticking with the rules that the committee was formed based upon. So we don't have the ability to go back and say you missed 2 this year and 2 last year and 2 the year before, and then decide that person's off. So unless this committee is going to recommend a change to the ordinance in terms of that 3 absence in a row rule, we could continue to have 50% attendance and not be able to kick them off.
Right. The 3 in a row, I noticed, every consent agenda, we excuse the absences. Are those included, or are those forgiven, and then those don't count as part of the 3?
Those would not count as part of the 3.
So technically, probably right now, everybody's at 0.
For purposes of that rule.
Yeah, I believe we've excused every absence in every meeting since inception.
I think they have to request an excused absence, and I do not believe that we've received requests for excused absences on every single absence.
Okay. Is that information staff can provide us if we have anyone that has not submitted an excused absence 3 times in a row, and I guess it'd be the last 3 meetings, including this one?
Christina or Michael, is that something that staff can provide?
Sorry, I missed the question.
Is staff?
Sorry, Sandy. We do have a attendance tracking sheet. I'd need confirmation that it's been utilized, and then it is turned in annually. It's something new this last fiscal year.
And yeah, there would be no issue with providing the attendance record.
Okay,
Okay.
it's something I've tracked since the beginning of the COC. But I believe the last time we looked at removing someone from the committee, it was 3 regular meetings and we had a few special. So I don't know if that's still in effect.
That'd be a question to Mr. McDonald.
Sorry, Candy, what was the question?
So the last
I
time
think Mr. McDonald, the question.
the last time we had a member removed, the issue we were running into was whatever's written says 3 regular meetings. So like our last meeting was a special meeting because it was a week later. I don't know if that's still in effect or not.
I'll have to double check the code on that, Sandy. I'm not sure if it makes a distinction between regular and special meetings.
Okay, thank you.
This is Commissioner Romo. Chair Garcia, based on your executive authority, I recommend that you would meet with staff and explore alternatives. And so perhaps the next meeting you would come with some more specific alternatives. I still support the idea of reducing the percentage, but maintaining the 16 members.
This is Commissioner Voorhees. If you don't mind, I just have a clarifying question.
Yes, sir.
When we're discussing reducing the percentage, or I guess reducing the quorum to 50% plus 1, am I to understand that that means that it can trigger a 3-member vote? So if 3 members are present, that's a quorum? Is that how that's being read?
So the discussion on the quorum versus the discussion on the voting were 2 different things. The quorum, as far as my understanding, will continue to be 50% plus 1 of the 16 members. I think the distinction was that if there was only 9 members that attended a meeting, that they could actually vote, and the majority, 50% plus 1 or 5 out of 9, could pass an item, as opposed to the current requirement of 9.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I would agree with that. I think it needs to be worded differently than what I've been hearing then, but I would support that.
Okay, so I would, so if staff has enough direction, and I still think that Commissioner First and myself and maybe Commissioner Romo would be available to maybe meet with staff and be able to fine tune some of these so that they can be brought back to the committee at their next meeting.
Staff will schedule a meeting. Go ahead.
This is Michael McDonald again. I don't think we can form a ad hoc committee at this time, as it wasn't an item on the agenda. If the desire is for someone on the committee to coordinate with staff on this issue, you could recommend one person to do so.
Okay. I would like to ask Commissioner First. I hope I'm not overstepping too much. Commissioner First, would you be willing to be that person?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, lost connection. I'll accept.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we'll have Commissioner First be our contact person.
Very good. Me and Sandy will be on the city team, and we'll contact Mr. First for a scheduled meeting that works for his schedule.
All right, thank you. So I think that concludes item 6. So moving on to we're moving on to item 7, staff presentation on Measure P, accounting and administration. Mr. Bilby?
Chair Garcia, I need to excuse myself. It's past 8 and I have a previous commitment.
Thank you, Commissioner Romo.
Thank you.
On PDF page 47 of tonight's agenda, there's an item entitled Item 7. Let's see, I'm scrolling up. Item 7A, Attachment 1. And so this includes all of the expenditures to date and the allocations to date for the Measure P. It's sort of in a format that's easy to follow, that the committee has commented on in ways that we can follow easier. So in the Q4, under total allocations, we've spent about $6.5 million this quarter. And that includes a variety of things, but usually and most often we have project payments. So project payments this quarter were $5.3 million. So that's for a variety of projects, including several of the ones that Bill Valley and Irasema brought up earlier, as well as the fire station. So $5.3 million was the bulk of the spending this quarter on project payments. We also spent a little over $300,000 on the radio communication system, almost $200,000 on our computer-aided dispatch system for the police department. We spent about $285,000 on non-safety vehicles for a chipper, a grinder, Chevy Silverado, and 2 Ford F-150s, and some vehicle outfitting in the Public Works Department. We spent approximately $300,000 for four Ford utility hybrid vehicles for the police department, along with outfitting. And we bought some small equipment and vehicle lease costs for the fire department. So again, in total, we spent $6.4 million this quarter, and we've spent to date this year, without final year-end reconciliations, approximately $27.7 million. And good news in that regard is the bond proceeds, the original amount of $71 million, we spent a little over $63 million in bond proceeds. So we achieved our bond requirements in order to spend the money timely. So it's officially been 3 years this month, as a matter of fact, and we were required to spend 85% of the proceeds within 3 years in order to avoid any bond disclosure violations. So, or bond spending violations, I should say. So if anyone has any questions on this particular item, we're happy to answer, and that concludes item number 7 for me.
Are there any questions for the staff? Again, any questions for the staff? Any commissioners? Okay. See no questions. Was item 7. We don't need a vote on item 7, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. So moving on to item 8, which is Measure P project updates. Staff has a presentation.
So this is Bill again. I don't have a presentation. This would be, well, I do have some photos. So let's go through those real quick just to show you some good news. So here's some shots, and Ed, you can just scroll through them as I talk. This is fire stations 5 and 9. And so you can see that they're well under construction. We've got some tilt-up walls going in, rebar, utilities. This is at 9 over near Moss and Naples. You go to the next shot. Yep. And so they're making really good progress. As David mentioned, there's been about $5 million in this quarter, but they're on track. They're still on track to open early April, hopefully, of next year is what we're looking at. March, April, 1 month apart. So that's the fire station relocations. And I'm just going to continue down the page. The page that I'm working off of in your packet is page 48. It's the spreadsheet I've showed you before, titled item 8A, attachment 1. So yeah, fire stations are well underway. Then street paving, as I mentioned earlier, we've actually completed our street rehab paving for phase 2. They're just in the final punch list work of some minor items. So that's completion of that. We have our traffic signal, fiber optics signal and signal improvements. That's going to be advertised next month. So we're doing well on that. The design phase is wrapping up. It'll be out to advertise and then construction. The CMP we've already discussed a bit. What's really left at this point is we do have a DRN. If you look at that project sheet, you'll see that there's a third project under that, or second project under infrastructure. It's DRN 216, and that's at 400,000 for emergency repairs. And that's the one I think we were talking about earlier about maybe at some point in the future, you know, maintaining it or replenishing it, making it bigger or whatever. The next one is our sidewalk rehabilitation program. So the sidewalk citywide is underway. The remove and replace sidewalks had been completed already. They're in the completed projects list, but we are continuing with the sidewalk slicing project. So that's the one where they have this cool saw that goes in and slices off any heaves, any trip hazards. They've completed the first quadrant of the city, which is the northwest area, and they're doing heaves that are basically between 1/4 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch, and they're starting on the second quadrant, which is the southwest part of the city, and then they'll move on to the other 2 quadrants on the east side. So that's progressing well. Then we have the Maxfield Maxfield Loma Verde accessibility study. That should be actually wrapping up close to the end of this fall. We've seen some preliminary info out of it for some recommendations on how to replace that bridge that was between Maxfield and the Loma Verde Rec Center. And so we'll be coming forward to you guys with that once it gets to a final document, and you can see what the options are there. It's basically the stairway connection is one element of it. A second element is a retaining wall up near the bleachers that's failing. And then a third element is looking at the ADA accessibility throughout Max Field, the park, the baseball fields only. And then the rest of the list is just the completed projects, which we've gone over before. So the next page is basically the on-call consultant contracts that are associated with these projects and some of IQ's. So that completes my update of the engineering and capital Measure P projects. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, do we have any questions for staff on the Measure P project updates?
And then IQ will have a presentation on her projects.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, this is IQ. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick summary of the progress we've made with some of the Measure P projects since we last met. And if you just continue to go through the slides, I think. So we've completed 4 projects, actually within the last quarter, 2 of those, and 1 just at the cusp of the ending of the quarter. Next slide, please. The projects that have been completed are several projects that were within the Norman Park Senior Center. Those projects included the general facility renovations, the men's and women's restroom, the kitchen, and all of them to be ADA compliant, along with replacement of the roof, replacement of a few HVAC systems, and waterproofing of the deck, which was pretty much a reconstruction at this facility. The total project we're about, it's about $1.9 million project at this point. The next slide. The other project that we're very excited has been completed now, and that's the replacement of 24 doors, front and back, at 6 different fire stations. These doors are high-speed doors. They have a universal transmitter that now makes all of the stations operate using the same remote for operation of the doors. The high speed also helps improve the response time for the fire department. The remaining stations there are 5 and 9, which are under construction, so they will get new doors in that process. 10 has already received a door, and Fire 1 will be under renovation after completion of those other stations. Let's see, the next, so that was a total of $1.2 million project for the fire doors. The next set of projects is a number of projects. We have 6 projects currently in construction. If you go to the next slide, Ed. The metal roof that I spoke about earlier over at the Boys and Girls Club. The Norman Park Senior Center has some additional HVAC in its second phase, plus a sheet metal roof. It's a small portion that's decorative that the underlayment has given out and will need to be replaced. And then we just bid out the replacement of lights at the Winding Walk and Veterans Parks. Very pleased to see that we're still getting very responsive bids, very competitive bids. We received about 13 bids on that project. Number 1 and 2 on that bid were like $5,000 apart. So the bidding process, competitive bid process under the Public Works contract is working well for us. The next one you see there is the Living Coast Rediscovery Center. We have 5 roofs currently in progress to be replaced. The contractor is moving pretty quickly through that project. We anticipate it'll be another couple of weeks before that project is completed. And then we just awarded a project for the pathway repairs, again, in a number of parks. As you may recall, early on in, I think, 2019 of the Measure P, we did about 4 different parks where we had trip hazards, ADA issues, pavement that had eroded. We've now bid and are scheduled to begin construction. Our pre-con meeting is next week for Eucalyptus Park, Los Niños Park, Roar Park, and Terra Nova Park. And then the last picture you see on this screen are the windows at the Women's Club. So earlier this year, we completed the roof replacement at the Women's Club. We are in process now to address the windows. So this is the working from the outside in to preserve the asset, and of course, keeping the air quality good within the building. Next. So the next slide is the number of projects that are currently bidding or scheduled to bid. Bidding on this coming week, actually advertising on Wednesday and open to bid, will be replacement of the boardwalk or walkways and the handrails over at the Discovery Living Coast Center, the Living Coast Discovery Center. And then scheduled for August, we have the Roar Park restrooms, which I think we kindly regard as the Mcdonald restrooms. We're hoping to get that bid out along with the item you approved earlier today with the transfer. As soon as we get those plans back from permitting, we'll be able to bid the Civic Center remaining 4 restrooms and the children's area and parking lot. And then trailing, and the reason it's on here is that we're bid ready and ready to move forward with some more energy efficiency solar inverter replacements post completion of our current solar project that we have in the works. Next. So the last slide here is the remaining projects that we had under the initial allocations, I believe, some of it in the bond funding that we're continuing to move forward. They're in a little bit more infancy stages in terms of design, with exception of the smart irrigation system, which I learned earlier today, may be ready for a presentation to provide you an update, but also for us to send out as a bid item. Actually, and I take that back, the bottom item, the Public Works chiller and boiler, the consultant there is Kitchell, and they're moving pretty fast through design. We are using a traditional design bid build bidding process, and we hope to get good bids on that project as well. And the final two are still in its infancy stage. I think playgrounds may be moving along a little faster, and community services will plan to provide a report on the next COC meeting. There is one item not on here, and that's Loma Verde, that is still in design. Staff working on that item also gave us an update earlier today and said that they would be bringing that item forward to the COC on the next quarter. So the final slide, and if we had all the cool automation that I usually have, it would all roll together as I talk. But the final slide is just the number of projects that are being managed currently by the Public Works Department, in addition to our normal course of operations for the city. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioner Garcia, I think you're muted.
I was muted?
Sorry, no, I was muted. Sorry.
Oh my gosh, not the entire time, Bill.
No, sorry, I was muted.
I said Commissioner Garcia.
Okay.
Sandy, do we need to go to the pause for 2 minutes to allow for public comment?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the items 7 through 9. Okay, the commenting period for this item is now closed. Do the commissioners have any questions or comments on these items? See no comments. Going on to other business.
No comments have been received.
All right, thank you, Sandy. I forgot that part. See no comments from the commissioners. Going on to other business, staff comments.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So, this is Maria Cacciadorian. So I don't know if you've heard, but I have good news and bad news. Good news is I was just recently promoted to city manager. Bad news is I was recently promoted to city manager. Depends on how you look at it, right? I hope you look at it as good news. But with that, I won't be as engaged in our Measure P COC committee as I have in the past. But I have recently promoted Kelly Broughton to deputy city manager, who's going to be taking on from the city manager's office the oversight of our COC committee. So he's going to be the one that's leading that. But I do want to let you know that this is my favorite group. This is my favorite committee. This has been such a journey for me personally. You know, I was looking at when we started working on this project, it was back in 2014. I can't believe how fast time has passed, and this is when Rick Hopkins was here. So we're doing a lot of good things. You know, I'm very supportive of this group, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. I would have never imagined when we were working on this back in the day that this would have been even more critical for the city to have in place. You know, we're going through some economic downturns because of the current COVID crisis. But if it weren't for Measure P, we would be in real serious trouble, because when things break, like you saw today, we have to fix it. But Measure P has provided us some ability to be able to move forward with these projects. So it's even more important than we ever imagined. So I do want to thank everyone for continuing to participate, and I will try to participate as much as I can. But I am going to kind of hand this over to Kelly Broughton, who's actually online tonight, and some of you may already know who he is. He's our Development Services Director and now a Deputy City Manager. So I just wanted to make that comment and introduce myself in a different capacity. Thank you.
So is
yes, and I am here sitting in the dark in my dining room, like many of you are. Turn my little LED my way. I appreciate the conversation. I'm not trying to butt in too much. I just wanted to listen to the discussion. I do like pipelining. I do like roof replacement. I do think that repair of public facilities is important for the protection of the asset. So I'm a firm believer in this. I come at it from a lot of development experience, so I know that you fix your roof first before you move furniture in. You fix your foundations before you do anything else with a structure. And so I support Bill and IQ's initiatives to do the things that they did tonight. And I want to let you know that I'm open for conversation with anybody who wants to call me. I'm looking forward to working with you all over the next coming years. And if I'm afforded that ability to do that.
Okay.
And I think it was a good meeting tonight. I have discussed quorums and committees for my entire career. I invited myself into that discussion, so you'll see me sticking my nose in, because I think committees want to get things done, and the thing that frustrates them the most is if somebody doesn't participate, they can't accomplish the work that they were assigned to do, and that frustrates me, and I don't want the public being frustrated. I want them to be able to participate in the process and accomplish things. So I'm here for you guys, and let me know how I can help you achieve your goals.
a question, Maria, is when did it become effective? You're the new city manager.
Yeah, it actually became effective on June 20th. So I've been doing it for a few weeks now.
Okay.
And just jumped right into it. You know, it's not a challenging time to take it on, but you know, I've been here a long time and I know the city really well, and we have great staff.
Okay. Well, I look forward to having coffee with you sometime.
Yes, that would be great. Look forward to actually seeing everybody in person someday soon.
Yes. Thank you for that that news, Maria, and good luck. It's a challenging job, especially at these times. Do we have any other staff comments? If not, do any committee members have any comments? Greg, I see you're back on, Mr. Martinez, so I'm glad to see you back in the loop. Does anybody else?
I went to since you called my name, I use my telephone now. So yeah. So
We're very welcome to have you on. So thank you.
okay. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I recommend using the phone connection, not the internet audio.
All right. Does anybody else have any comments? If not, I'm adjourning the meeting, and it is 8:48. So thank you guys. The next meeting is October 22nd at 6 p.m. And I'm sure Sandy will be in touch with everybody. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.